timing. I always feel like God is watching. I woke up in a state of mind, feeling I can do better. You serve a God of a second chance. You respect life on a whole different level. Can't come without repentance. Being alive is a privilege. To see another day is a miracle. I know I'm on my own when I'm not alone. I'm running for my life, running. So make it right on my own. The Lord promised me never leave me. I've waited for a long time. So keep me alone. Keep the plans that they were for me. In the presence of my enemies.
You, on the other hand, have decided to do the opposite, which is to declare yourself openly as the person behind these disclosures. Why did you choose to do that?
I think that the public is owed an explanation of the motivations behind the people who make these disclosures that are outside of the democratic model. When you are subverting the power of government, that's a fundamentally dangerous thing to democracy. And if you do that in secret consistently, as the government does when it wants to benefit from a secret action that it took, it'll kind of give its officials a mandate to go, hey, tell the press about this thing and that thing, so the public is on our side. But they rarely, if ever, do that when an abuse occurs. That falls to individual citizens, but they're typically maligned. It becomes a thing of these people are against the country, they're against the government. But I'm not. I'm no different from anybody else. I don't have special skills. I'm just another guy who sits there day to day in the office, watches what's happening, and goes, this is something that's not our place to decide. The public needs to decide whether these programs and policies are right or wrong. And I'm willing to go on with the record to defend the authenticity of them and say, I didn't change these. I didn't modify the story. This is the truth. This is what's happening. You should decide whether we need to be doing this.
Have you given thought to what it is that the U.S. government's response to your conduct is in terms of what they might say about you, how they might try to depict you, what they might try to do to you?
Yeah, I could be, rendered by the CIA. I could have people come after me, or any of their third-party partners. They work closely with a number of other nations, or they could pay off the triads, or any of their agents or assets. We've got a CIA station just up the road, and the consulate here in Hong Kong, and I'm sure they're going to be very busy for the next week. And that's a fear I'll live under for the rest of my life, however long that happens to be.
The voice you just heard was Edward Snowden, former contractor for the NSA and senior advisor for solution analysts on the CIA Board of Administrations. I wanted to lead in with that so we get back on another journey to truth in life, where we utilize the power of truth to be set free from the chains of deception in order to set a foundation and a basis for the topic we are about to discuss. You see the title, Surveillance AI, in parentheses, A, then the word IEIE, close parentheses, in the sky, watchers. We're at war, people, and it's time that we wake up and accept the fact that we are in a physical, spiritual battle. On all fronts, we're at war. The lines have been drawn. And anything about war, there's always casualties. The battlefields in war littered with the wounded, the dying, and the dead. We don't want to become a casualty due to our ignorancy. The scriptures tells us that our people perish for the lack of knowledge. So in today's video, I want to actually address some issues. Of course, I was attempting to pull up some sources that I had on hand, and somehow, some way, they came up missing. How ironic. Nonetheless, we're going to move forward because that's what we do as soldiers on the front line fighting the good fight of faith. We take deep breaths, exhale all our fears, and we move forward in faith. And that's what I want us to do. So, Edward Snowden was one of the brave members that came forward to expose the government's hyper surveillance of innocent citizens through FISA court abuses, etc. He exposed a lot of, you know, crimes that were being committed by governmental agencies abusing their power through the diversion of the FISA court, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Somehow, after the 9/11 false flag catastrophe, the government came into power, and we're going to discuss these things in, according to social political facts and the scriptural truths that warned us about these things before they even took place. So the 9/11, Boston bombing, Oklahoma City, all these unsolved world or nation calamities resulted in the government acquisitioning power unto itself that was not originally declared in constitutional law. As a matter of fact, the republic democracy was designed in such a way that it eliminated the dictatorial monarchy type structure that the world was previously ruled under, taking the power out of the hands of the wealthy elites and placing that power into the hands of the people. This is what the story narrative is in American history and origins. Is the Boston Tea Party, for those of you who don't know, was a whole bunch of hardworking, fed up poor people who got tired of being overtaxed, overworked, and underrepresented, revolutionizing the way that we do government altogether. A couple of hundred years later, those that are part of that elite governmental royal satanic bloodline decided they wanted that power back. They just couldn't do without having power over a country as formidable as the United States without sovereign rulership. You know, coming for the narcissist, right? They like the rush and the feel of the power coursing through their veins. Nonetheless, we know that the only true power that can course through one's veins is the blood of Christ, which can set you free from the ultimate resolve or end of death and destruction. So we're going to get to it. If you're new to this channel and you're wondering what your boy MTAC is harping about, I am talking about crimes against the people. I myself am a victim of governmental crimes and attacks that have been launched out against my life as I was placed on a terrorist watch list years ago. I don't know when it started. I can only tell you whenever the program went overt or became obvious. For those of you who don't understand that terminology in my life, around 2013, 2012, 2013, my life began to fall apart, but it was so um, systematic and calculated. I knew it had to be a intelligent hidden hand orchestrating the unfortunate events in my life. I lost one home, several jobs, and I had never had any issues with maintaining stability in my career before my life. I've always been a hard worker, grew up down south in the country, and just was taught, you know, good work ethics lead to uh, you, a person making themselves an asset. And a company don't want to lose an asset. You know what I mean? If you're a liability, they'll go ahead and get rid of you. But for some reason or another, um, things started happening in my family that I could not explain. Family members in my household began to complain about strange attacks. And when I say strange, I'm talking about Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. That's a book you guys should get if you don't have it. They were complaining about feeling laser-like internal pains that they would describe as penetrating through the walls. Now, at this time, I was not the original target because the governmental agencies that I speak of, they work on an outside to the inside um, way, meaning though they will attack and contact those outside of you in order to recon and gather information about you before they move in. They will weaken uh, any sort of support you have. So if you're married, they will destroy your marriage. If you have finances, they will sabotage your financial bases, etc. So this all was happening slowly and incrementally over the course of a few years in my life. And I would often set back and try to readjust and calculate a plan and a strategy. I thought by working harder, taking on second jobs, or whatever the case may be, I could fix the problem. No, one thing happened after the next, whether it was vehicular breakdowns, whatever. I have my wife, who's deceased now. At that time, complaining about weird stuff. She was going strange, and I couldn't figure things out. She started hearing voices. The kids were hearing voices and going crazy when everyone was normal in the beginning. It eventually led to things such as um, those close to me talking about color coordinations. Now, I guess due to the way that my mind operates, I'm still not able to fully discern the color coordination unless I try to focus on it. I don't notice color patterns that well for whatever reason or another. But it wasn't until I was blacklisted out of the um, work field in the state of Louisiana um, in 2012, between 2012 and 2013, the end of 2012, beginning of 2013. And the only job that I could find was a weird, after, falling behind on bills, running from one state to the next. I was getting ready to lose my home in Louisiana, and all of a sudden I got an email, and the email was from Schneider Intermodal and located in Chicago, Illinois, and it had a great sales pitch. Come make $85,000 a year, working 4 days a week, 3 days off, home every single day on, you know, intermodal rail haul. And it looked like the answer to my prayers. Not knowing that they were trying to reposition me to a location that was infested and infected with government agencies that are part of a criminal cartel doing non-consensual, illegal human experimentations for population control and surveillance. They were able to get me settled in. I started working February of 2013. And for a while, everything seemed very smooth. I was working, making livable wages. It looked like I was going to work my way back to stability, right? Decent paychecks, nice time off. And all of a sudden, weird things started happening. Talking about the strangest things. Weirdos on my job, was always trying to be overly conversational and invasive into my personal life. Now, I'm one who have always separated business and personal. I just was taught to operate like that. You know, business is business, personal is personal, and so forth. But these weirdos would often um, go over and beyond in order to invade my personal life and try to strike up conversations. Of course, you know, due to the fact that I was from down south, they would often talk about the language that I would use that would make me stand out in the Chicagoland area, etc. I just kind of shrugged it off as, you know, that's understandable. Someone's not from the area and they do things a little bit different. They dress a little bit different, etc. I'm living my life at that point. Um, but it wasn't until I began to notice it was, you know, um, people like they I didn't know it was government agencies involved at the time, but I started to, you know, become hyper aware of people's actions and behaviors. So they had one weirdo working there by the name of Curtis Bogart, who was an auxiliary police officer for the Department of Homeland Security in a part-time job. I had no idea that gang stalking was a real thing, and trust me, it is. I had heard of InfoGuard, which is the private security profitable sector of the FBI, but I didn't really pay attention to the fact that, you know, they would have plants working in corporations, Fortune 500 corporations like the one that I worked for, who would be double agents, you know what I mean, undercover, as appearing to be everyday working citizens, but doing the devil's bidding, sabotaging people, lives, spreading lies, rumors, etc., poisoning people, drugging people. They also invited people such as, what was his name? Ernest Young, Corey Turner, um, Edward Jones. Those are some of the black people that they would use that worked at that location in the office in order to engage me, because um, they had figured out or collected enough information to understand that I culturally identify as an Israelite, and meaning that, you know, I'm pro my people and I am very proud of our Israelite heritage and things of that nature, which was taught by my mother at a very young age. And after she passed, I really took it serious. So they obviously collected that much information. So they felt as if, by introducing Black agents into my environment, they would be more successful in throwing me off. But boy, were they wrong. You know what I mean? So, long story short, just because I'm pro-Black don't mean I'm anti-white or anti-Mexican. I'm pro-humanity. I'm pro-righteousness. I just began with charity at home with my own, and then spread it abroad as the scriptures tells us to do so. But long story short, things started getting weird, started getting strange. Drugging, poisonings, vandalism, break-ins, getting hit with directed energy weapons, which do exist, being tracked, traced, monitored, surveilled by groups of strangers, and the list went on and on. It felt as if I was losing my mind, and fortunate it was the Holy Spirit that allowed me to see the hidden hand of these Masonic governmental satanic agencies attempting to destroy my life. And the surveillance portion is what I want to focus on. But before we begin, if you don't know, these government agencies such as the CIA, Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, CIA, through the Department of Justice and their FISA court legislations, are indeed spreading lies, rumors, defamation about members of the community like myself, and obtaining wrongful, illegitimate court authorizations from federal magistrate judges, which are supposed to be appointed, by uh, presidential cabinets in order to keep the country safe. Instead of keeping the country safe, as you heard in the introduction with Edward Snowden, they have decided that the new definition of national security is nationally securing the elite, wealthy oligarchies positioned at the top of the food chain. And anyone who's outspoken, knows too much, or is questioning too much is considered a threat to the establishment of power that exists as the deep state. The puppets that we regard as elected officials are just that, puppets. They are not the ones with the power that you would think. Corporations, money move um, things in this capitalistic nation. Just know that. Don't have time to dive in any further than that. But you best believe that money makes a difference. And with their wicked, dirty dollars, they're able to get away with just about everything with man. But with the Most High, as the scriptures say, his judgment returns righteousness. They cannot escape the judgment of the Heavenly Father. But they spread these lies in order to convince family members, co-workers, neighbors, churches, schools, libraries, public, private businesses, and organizations that we who are targeted um, here in America and other parts of the world are being investigated as possible terrorists, mentally unstable, which is where they do the psychiatric reprisal. You can look that phrase up, psychiatric reprisal. It is communism. Its roots were in communistic Russia underneath Shogunov's era as prime minister. And that right there is not only a crime, but it is treason. We're dealing with treasonistic criminals in positions of deep state power. And so they go, the list goes on. They're liable to tell people we're pedophiles. You know, we're being investigated for drug trafficking, which they're the ones who's drug trafficking, or human trafficking, and they're the ones who's human trafficking, you know, and any other unsavory label that could possibly convince people to watch us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and participate in some of the most heinous acts against the person set to be neutralized. They want to either neutralize or eliminate the target. If you're a soft target, neutralization is the goal. If you're a hard target, meaning someone who resists, elimination is the goal. And they work by, you know, a five-step process: observation, which is reconnaissance, data mining, which is what the PRISM program was all about, that Edward Snowden exposed. So that's number one. Infiltration. This is where they put plants in your life. I have a lot of plants and have had plants in my life for a long time. They infiltrate your life as false friends working for agencies, family members who are converted through blackmail, bribery, etc., into working on behalf of the agencies. As sick as this sound, they will even place honeypots into one's life. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, your boy MTAC even had, you know, women who was working for government agencies, old dirty whores of Babylon, if you will, because anybody who will try to seduce a person for governmental benefits, hey, you're a slut, you're the whore of Babylon. The system is Babylon, and if you're working as a honeypot, you're a whore of Babylon, and that's just the truth of the matter. But somehow, some way, the government got a lot of like witches, you know what I mean, working on their behalf, and their job is to move in and to try to get close enough to the target, and often drug the target. And there's some stories there, trust me, weird, strange stories of being drugged by these Babylonian witches. But I'll digress from there in order to move on, because we're in some strange times. But to surveil, to collect hands-on information, to try to build a profile on the personality, character, and habits of the targeted individual is their goal. But fake friends anywhere, co-workers, even at churches. I've gone to worship services where I was invited, and the government literally planted agents at the churches. I went to one church, and I'm not even going to call out the name, but for those of you who are subscribed to my channel, who you know this personally, because you attended that particular service, they actually paid the organization to bring in a masonic, pretend to be preacher, to you know, orate a sermon that was completely structured around the, you know, COINTELPRO gaslighting campaign that had been running against me for a week straight. And just feel as if that person is in jeopardy of hellfire if they don't repent. Because one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to play with the Holy Spirit. You know, all things will be forgiven, but anybody who feels brave enough to do something like that, I don't know what to say about you. You know, and that person knows who they are. Hopefully, they hear this message. But at the end of the sermon, I walked right up to him and handed him one of my community warning flyers that let him know I am fully versed on the program because I'm a researcher and scholar, and I know that the scriptures tells us not to be ignorant of Satan's devices. So if there's something I don't know, I'm going to go research and find out so that I am not destroyed for the lack of knowledge. But this program is designed ultimately to human traffic those of us on the watch list. I'm being human trafficked right now out of the state of Illinois. Um, so if you have a work skill, they will overwork you, underpay you, and traffic you around from job to job. If you're a woman, you could be sexually trafficked. If you're a child, you could be sexually trafficked. Heck, in today's time, you're liable to be sex trafficked and drugged and raped, even if you're a man or a baby. It really don't matter. Even if you're a dog or a cat, they don't care. We're dealing with some sick, low down, dirty, evil bastards straight out of the pits of hell. You know, the bottomless pits is where these people come from. They have no emotions whatsoever. So doing evil to a person like myself, don't bother them. They can do it with a smile on their face, and they have done the most evil, sinister, low down, dirty, wicked, evil, satanic things to me that you could ever imagine. But the thing that I want to focus on is the surveillance in this particular video. Welcome on for those of you who are in the building. You know, I definitely welcome you on. The title is talking about the surveillance AI. Now, the PRISM program was more than just a program. Edward Snowden exposed this after moving to Moscow, Russia for protection. Well, he first moved to Hong Kong. Then from Hong Kong, once his life was threatened there, he moved into Moscow, Russia for protection from the United States government, who was seeking to, charge him as a traitor to the country for exposing crimes committed by the deep state government against the people. One of those people being myself, you know. So, long story short, surveillance is very key. I was mentioning the 5 steps. So, observation, information gathering, reconnaissance is number 1. Infiltration is number 2. And yes, they've infiltrated every sector of my life. I don't trust nobody because of the situation. I know that whether I'm online or in person, 99% of the time, the one that I'm interacting with is working on behalf of the agencies. I don't even trust my own family. I don't mean that I treat anyone bad. I still show that charitable, loving heart that Christ had, but Christ himself was no fool. He knew they were out to get him. And if we have the spirit of Christ, and I do, as he was persecuted, rejected, and stalked, tracked, traced, monitored, and surveilled by agencies of this world, we're going to experience the same level of all right. All right. Well, there's no new comments, but we're going to receive the same level of suffering and attacks on our lives, right? But number 3 is manipulation. This is where the fake leaflets, story narratives, etc., take place. And because they done a wonderful job preconditioning people to what is known as the entertainment over education, paradigm, which is a thought process, a way that people tend to see and prefer the world, their values exalted over reality. Uh, uh, they are able to manipulate people through um, social media apps. These are secret chat groups, such as the Risk app, such as private WhatsApp, and the list goes on. And through this, they share the most evil, vile, uh, false leaflets in order to shape the public's perception about someone. This is nothing new. If you go look up the counterintelligence program, which was a covert guerrilla style war against the black community here in America by the FBI and CIA during the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, you'll see that uh, they divided the unity which gave the black community strength through the spreading of lies, rumors, etc. Paying people to turn on others. And yeah, my device would ring. I do apologize if that disrupted what we're discussing. But long story short, um, yeah, this is nothing new. They've been doing these things for a long time. The surveillance, um, is kind of the linchpin that holds the program all together, because they must keep constant watch and eye on the targeted individual like myself, who we interact with, where we go, et cetera. So they're always in position to counteract our actions. This uh, reinforces and strengthens the neutralization effect of the target. So after manipulating everyone around you, and they even manipulated my family. I have brothers and sisters that's been manipulated, bribed, intimidated. I could call out their names, and I should if I was a loser, a weak, whack, um, backstabbing lowlife like some of the people who've turned their backs on me. I would actually do that. Unfortunately, there's something in me that will get thrown underneath the bus and still let the individual I could literally snatch outside the window and throw them underneath the bus. I'll let you guys ride, because this is just Christ's character in display. Um, Long story short, family, friends, everyone's manipulated. That's number three. Next come the intimidation. This is when they begin to threaten you. For a long time, I would receive threatening phone calls, threatening text messages. And because my um, tech security skills were um, very low at the time, I was unable to keep them from resetting my device. They would send me a threatening message, and then once I've read it or click on it, it would delete automatically, and then my phone would factory reset. Obviously, they had remote access to my phone, which they probably still do at the moment. But that was a form of intimidation. They would call me on the phone, and they would say threatening things about myself and about my family, and then hang up. And it would always be from a private number. They would then reinforce or attempt to reinforce the fear by having strangers conduct indirect conversation in places that I would go. So if I was at a grocery store, they would have two strangers, talk about what was text to me or what was said to me over the phone by these government agencies. In order to cause paranoia to some extent. What else? Um, and man, I'm getting off topic, so I don't want to talk about my situation too much when we should be talking about this surveillance. But intimidation is a huge factor. They also uh, stabbed my tires. I was on my way to a funeral one day after the government, I believe, killed one of my friends, um, who was a young man. I believe he was 50 one 52 years old, and he had moved, him and his family had moved from um, Pennsylvania to the state of Illinois, where my targeting began at the time. And he was a Christian minister, him and his wife, and he began to question the lies that they were spreading about me. And once he got to know me, he was like, I don't sense that about you at all. You know what I mean? He never told me what it was, but whatever lies they had been feeding to him, after getting to know me, he could pick up, like, that's not you. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on, but something's off, because I can he could literally feel, you know what I mean, like my aura, my spirit, like, you're a good person. So why they're painting you out to be everything they're talking about, I don't get it. So he was one of the few who never treated me different, and he um, didn't go along with their objective to get people to pull away from me and cut ties with me. So it just so happened that they gave him a heart attack while he was at work. And this is someone who was in shape, fit, and he ended up having an untimely, unfortunate departing. And so I was speaking with his wife and his daughter, and they wanted me to be there because I was like one of the few friends he had made while he was in the state of Illinois. And they wanted me to speak at his funeral. So, I went and got dressed up on the day of his service, and I'm on my way to pay my respects, to someone who was a great friend of mine for the short time that we knew each other. I stopped to fuel up, go inside the gas station to pay. When I come out, there's you know a Jeep Wrangler, with two white guys. One of them had a bald head and a beard, looked at like they could work for private security corporations. They had the dark blue and gray flag, which is the POW flag, on the side of their vehicle, and they were giving me the middle finger as they ribbed up the motor and drove off. I walked over to my car, only to realize I had two flats on both sides, where you could see the puncture wounds of a pocket knife that had gone through. I ended up being 35 minutes late, waiting on services to get my tire fixed. I did a recording, sent it to my older brother, who was well versed on the FBI and CIA's attack on my life, etc. And he clearly was like, "Yeah, that your tires just got stabbed." The pictures, everything shows what's going on. So these are some of the intimidations that I personally experienced, but not just me, other victims of this crime. So after intimidation is domination. This is when, if you give into the fear, if you give into the threats, they will dominate every aspect of your life. They normally whore out women. There's a lady who lives in the town region that I stay in, of West Monroe, Louisiana, who's a gang stalker. And, she was brave enough to speak out and tell me about the program. I asked her how was the group she was with able to follow me all over town, so accurately. And she said that they had a group app, and it was a group thing that, they interacted with. She was going to charge me $50 to allow me to see it. I would have easily paid it, you know what I mean? But she came up missing. These are real life circumstances that need to be addressed. She also told me that if she don't do what they tell her, there's the V2K or voice to skull weapons that they torture her with. They threaten her and they say all sorts of things. And she said that she herself, and she's a gang stalker, was under heightened surveillance. And I told you the surveillance part is like the linchpin that holds it all together, because it's the spiritual aspect, which enforces the, manipulation, intimidation, and the ultimate domination that Satan and his little minions desire to have over those of us who just want to live our life and do the right thing, right? And after domination, they will eliminate you. But the domination, they'll work you. They basically, you'll be their slave. Oftentimes, well, a good example is the FBI's informant network. Anyone who's part of the Phoenix program or the FBI's informant network are people who have committed crimes, been set up, framed for crimes, many of them, and with these felonies on their records, they have no ability to be able to obtain a job and take care of themselves. Therefore, they're dependent on subsidized income through, government informant networks, where through snitch and carrying out evil criminal biddings, that gives them with judicial immunity through legislation HR 2048, U.S. Code 105. And if it's in legislation, it's being carried out, it's being enforced. This is where we get law enforcement from. This is my second time repeating that today. But think about that, people. If they're giving people judicial immunity to break in, to vandalize, to steal items, as long as they're reporting it back to national security agencies, that means it's actually happening. It's not conspiracy, it's law, right? It's real. So let's come out of our shells, stop being skeptics, and see the world for the ugly beast that it is. So, yeah, I've kind of gotten off topic, but the PRISM program that Edward Snowden discussed was more than just a program of data mining, which means the cyber gathering of information online. It was much more advanced than that. PRISM is the name of the NSA's satellite. That is the name of their satellite, which they have deployed. They have more advanced forms of the PRISM satellite, which is not monitoring foreign governments and terroristic threats overseas. Domestically, these satellites monitor, track, trace every individual here in the United States of America. And so, I want us to be aware of the fact that what we perceive oftentimes as a lone star in the sky is these citizen surveillance satellites. I have one that is catered toward me, and it monitors me wherever I go. I'm pretty sure if I go to the window, I could identify it. It'll look like a star in the sky, but it'll be all by itself. And I'm just going to attempt to see if I actually see it. Normally it's not hard, but it is a cloudy night. You know, long story short is it's always close by. You know what I mean? It's always close by, and not one moment passes by that I'm not constantly monitored, track, traced, and surveilled. And the scripture speaks of this specifically in the book of Daniel. Um, we are able to get an insight on prophetical warning of this beast. Now, I normally carry my trusty scriptures with me. Unfortunate, I ended up forgetting it whenever I flew out for this logistics contract, and the only one that I had with me was this, New Testament, which they give away at the truck stops, at some truck stops. So I'm going to have to read from a different source if you guys don't mind. So in the book of Daniel, and you can go there, chapter 7, starting at verse 20, it states that concerning the beast, which is the kingdom system. The kingdom is a set of rules, operations, the whole system, right? It's given a description of what this end time beast that we're facing is going to be like. So starting at verse 20, if you want to go there in the KJV, it states, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the others which came up, before whom 3 fell, the 3 you could think of as your legislative, judicial, and executive branches fall into the deep state. That's horns represent power, right? So the deep state have pretty much subjected the 3 branches of government, which is the Congress, the executive, which is your president and its cabinets and bureaus, and the judicial, which is the court system, which interprets the laws, under its subjection. They don't want to turn. I mean, who was the last one to speak out against that? Emar, I can't pronunciate her name, but she was a senator, young senator, very smart, bright doctor in her 30s out of the state of Minnesota. Ilhan Omar, if you guys are familiar with her, they absolutely ruined that lady's life through this counterintelligence program after she spoke up and spoke out about the central bankers and their control over the world. And we know about the Zionists, the Ashkenazi central bankers, and how much power they wield over this system. As a matter of fact, they control the banks, the Federal Reserves, and all central bankings across the U.S. And when she was brave enough to speak out on it in the Senate, they came down on her like white on rice. She ended up losing her husband. She almost lost her mind. And she's not the same person. She had no idea about the directed energy weapons, about the remote neural monitoring. She went through all of that. And the Omar Ilhan that you see today is not the same one from back then. As a matter of fact, they've been I went to go search the web on old videos of her speeches because I was just so enamored by her brilliancy and orations. She's just a humanitarian with a heart, or at least she was. I loved hearing her speeches. I can't find them anymore. I just find like the new, probably clone version of her that they are now marketing to the world, which is something that they do. Behavioral modification, MK Ultra, is a monarch, is a real thing. Behavioral modification is their goal. They want to behavioral modify, essentially erasing the old person and then creating a new identity within that person, and they have a team of Nazi psychologists and so forth in order to orchestrate the program, the psychiatric program to MK Ultra victims. Another victim of that was what's the guy that got arrested in South Africa? Nelson Mandela. The MI5 and MI6 finally admitted several years ago after his release that they were slow poisoning him in order to mentally destroy his mental faculties, so that when he was released from prison, he would be a threat no longer, and so forth. So these are realities. Long story short, the three horns are the three powers that fell to the deep state surveillance was your judicial, executive, and legislative branches. Continuing, it says, even that horn that had eyes meaning surveillance, right? This is verse 20 of the book of Daniel, chapter 7. So when it speaks of eyes, it's talking about surveillance. You know what I mean? Like the satellites in the sky, the boots on the ground, where they're able to have hive mind teams. Dr. Robert Duncan writes a book where he exposed a lot of the New Age advancement with what is known as hydrodyning, which is the cloning of another person's mind onto another. The government projects that are deep secrets, they're able to do these things where they have Manchurian candidates and agents that are out here that through their eyes, whatever they see, the governments are able to see on their video monitors. Sound science fiction. This is a reality, people, in 2023. Just accept it or don't believe it, but we're in these days and age. But I suggest if it's in the word, you believe the word. So the word tells us in verse 20 of the book of Daniel, chapter 7, that the next power is going to be a surveillance state. It's going to have eyes everywhere, the eye in the sky, right? Where we're being constantly tracked, traced, monitored, and surveilled wherever we go. They have a visual on us, and a mouth that spake very abominative things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. This surveillance deep state appears to be very strong. The book of Revelation says in chapter 13, when the masses saw the beast system, the deep state, they said, who dare to make war against the deep state? You know, but there's a chosen elect few, 144,000 of us, mentioned in chapter 14, that stand with Christ on Mount Zion. And we have our Father, our Heavenly Father, on our mind at all time. And he don't give us a spirit of fear and cowardness and yellow belliness, but he give us power, love, and wisdom. And we ride with Christ. We are ride or die. I like riding shotgun with my Savior, to be honest. And you know what I mean? We roll together, we stay together. And that's how we get down in the 144. But a mouth speaking abominative things. This is going back to what I originally mentioned about the character assassination, the defamation and slander through, whether it's be through videos, pictures, or just mouth to mouth, mouth to ear, rather, slander tactics. These are abominative things that they have put out on people like myself and others who are victims of this deep state, surveillance state, 1984 1984 George Orwellian monster that is in full fruition in 2023. And it goes on to say, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Verse 21, I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. So I said earlier that there's always casualties in war. Many of us have suffered losses. I've lost a lot in this war. I've lost friends. I've lost families. I've lost job opportunities. I've lost so much. You know, I had a so-called, 10-year and 5-year plan for my life, and that's going down the drain. You know what I mean? Business ventures and ideals that I had would never happen unless the Most High just make a miracle, because they've sabotaged all that. Relationships that I had developed completely gone. Lost my home, lived homeless, lost vehicles, but I never lost my faith. So that is the most important thing. But the battlefield is always littered with uh, the wounded, the dying, and the dead. So there is war against the saints, those of us who are of faith. We believe, and we are part of I'm not sure who this is, but just to let you know how they operate. So they had the lights on me. I could see, they just turned off, but they often do that where they put bright lights on me in order to get my attention, to say, basically, we're watching you, we're monitoring you. And that vehicle just stayed there until I gave it my attention. And then after the distraction, they moved on. But long story short, a lot of losses for the saints, because it's been said in the word, that the beast system, the Antichrist system, the little horn, the surveillance state, would make war with the saints and prevail against us for a time, until it says in verse 22, the Ancient of Days, who is the Most High, came in judgment, meaning that our judgment isn't going to be an earthly one. It's not going to be the world, the government systems that give us favor. It's going to be the Most High who gives us favor. And it says, and was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the meek, inheriting the kingdom. So the meek are going to possess the earth. We're going to run this before it's all over with, believe it or not. Though it may not appear to be so at the time, that's going to be the end result. Trust me, if it's in the Most High's word, there's no devil in hell or walking this earth that can stop or detour the Father's plan, set in his word. And they know this. And it says, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it into pieces. This is talking about the colonization, treading down the earth, breaking it into pieces, dividing it amongst themselves. This happened with the European explorations as they went into, other countries and continents, and they divided amongst themselves. This is why when you go to Africa and different places, you can go to Somalia, and the national language there is not Somali, but Italian. They speak Italian. You can go to Cameroon, and they speak French, in Nigeria in English, Portuguese in different parts of South America, and Spanish, which comes from Spain, European Spain, and so forth. So the word was right on it. It says, out of this European system, it's going to rise up the surveillance state, the MI5, MI6 of the UK, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA of the US, and they were going to come together in the end in order to create the surveillance state that have subjugated both black, white, Hispanic, Asians, and all of humanity to servitude. Either you're working for them or they're trampling you underneath their feet. They break into pieces the residue, as it is mentioned in the next scripture. So we're over 1 hour, but this is also mentioned in the book of Revelations, chapter 17, where it kind of goes into a different position and detail about the beast system. And so this is the prophet John on the Isle of Patmos, being given understanding of the beast system, which is attacking us. And so, starting at verse 4, it says, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. America is the most sexually immoral place on the face of the planet. You know, I mean, I could just go on a tangent right there, but I think we know that America is the new Sodom and Gomorrah, and that is just the truth. No disrespect. It's out of love, because truth is it is love, right? So America is full of pedophiles. America is full of rapists and human traffickers and organ harvesters, people who dumb down the population and then subject them to non-consensual experimentations. They've gone overseas to Wuhan and through the laboratories and enhanced what they call it. It's called gain of function research, biowarfare. They have many people wearing masks, confined to their homes on curfews and solitary confinement for months on end, you know, unable to travel, and followed up by, you know, mass experimentational injections of the public. Nothing ever got marketed and administered, especially on a mandate to the public, without going through the proper steps of testings. You know, normally rhesus monkeys and lab rats are tested on before it's marketed to the people. This was the first time, and I'm not going to say any names, that the people got administered certain things before lab rats and monkeys did. You know, I feel sorry for the lab rats and monkeys, but, you know, I don't want to be one. And I hate the fact that so many American citizens became those lab rats and monkeys. And who knows, the long-term effects, the duration for that have not come into terms, but we're getting close. You know, I always say, you know, every 5 to 7 years, they mass market a new drug, you know, a new pharmaceutical. And you'll hear the infomercial over and over and over again. The healthcare system, not health cure, but health care, meaning that it is capitalism. The healthcare system is pro-profit. They're not there to heal you, to cure you. They're there to make profit. This is what sustainable healthcare is all about. They don't want to cure you. They want to just make sure you keep coming back, spending more and more money. The insurance companies are fried. This is why you have high premiums on your PPOs and HMOs. And I could, really go off on a tangent there. But long story short, for the intellectual audience that we do have, I believe we all know the scheme that they've ran for so long. We've seen the dog tricks, every last one of them over and over again. We're bored. We want to change the channel and see something new, but they have no new tricks up their sleeves. So they continue to do the same thing, marketing certain pharmaceuticals as the end all be all. You got to have it. And then 5 to 7 years later, you hear the end resolve, which is if you or a loved one have experienced heart attack, stroke, turf toe, dry mouth, possibly death from taking blah, 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 you may be entitled to some cheesy class action lawsuit where everyone divides $1 billion or $1 million and end up with 2 cents, you know what I mean, to their for their pain and suffering. JITV says, thank you. Absolutely. This is what I do. You know what I mean? Somebody got to be bold and brave and stand up and tell it like it is. So why not? We're too close to the end for me to turn into a coward now. I've never been a coward my entire life. And it reminds me of that old Lil Wayne song that said, I ain't never ran from a Negro and I ain't about to pick today to start running. You know what I mean? So, that's pretty much what it is. I ain't never ran from nothing. So I ain't going to pick today to start being a coward. We're too close to the end. And as a matter of fact, the scriptures tells us that no coward is going to make it into the kingdom. So let's stand up. Let's be brave. Let's be bold. Let's be forthright and outspoken. Let's speak up. For those of you who want to reach out to me and join victims of intelligence community espionage, I will give my information in the chat, so you can call me at an appropriate time, and I can get you in touch with some brilliant, amazing people who have come together in order to expose and fight the beast. You know what I mean? We're frontline warriors, and I'm proud of every last one of the targeted individuals who participate in the week by week conference calls and demonstrations headed by Mr. Malik. No More Gangstalking. Go check his page out. Like, share, subscribe. Type in NOMORE space Gangstalking, and you'll see the brother, him and his sister, who is the chairman of the organization, does a great job on the West Coast with putting out banners and flyers on the freeways and exposing these FISA court deep state surveillance crime that is happening to Americans across the country. So it says, and the woman was arrayed with purple and scarlet and adorned with gold, jewels, pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of the abominations, the impurities in her sexual immoralities. More and more of these rich people are being exposed for their pedophilia. Even Donald Trump, when he was in office and campaigning, he said, hey, I'm going to expose your pedophile rings. They tried to stop him from becoming president. And what gave him the edge is he started threatening to expose what they do in secret, which is kidnapping children and sexually abusing them to their death. Many children aren't turning up. They're going missing. As a matter of fact, I walk into Walmart sometimes, and at the Walmart Supercenter in the location that I live in, they actually have a wall of missing children and across the U.S. Asking if you've seen this child, report it back to whatever hotline. And I often stare at the pictures, and just my heart breaks, because I know that many of them children will never show up because they're victims of the sex trafficking ring that Donald Trump was getting ready to expose to the entire world. And that means that, one narcissist threatening another narcissist, these people are unbelievable. You know what I mean? But more and more of the rich are being exposed regarding their human trafficking, sex trafficking. It goes on. As a matter of fact, let me just drop down to verse 6, and it says, "And I saw, and the woman was drunk with the blood of the saints." This goes back to what we read earlier in the book of Daniel, talking about the beast made war with the saints and prevailed against them. It's been prevailing against us, but the tides are starting to turn. And the blood of the martyrs of Christ, some you say Jesus, Yeshua, spirit and truth, the presence of the Most High here on earth. And it says, "And I saw her and marveled greatly, but the angel who was with me said, Why do you marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and the beast with these 7 heads and the 10 horns that carry her." Remember, one of the horns out of the 7 or the 10 was a surveillance state. This is the same surveillance state that launched satellites in the sky, such as the PRISM satellites, surveillancing people like myself. And it says, "And the beast you saw was and is not and is about to rise from the bottomless pit." Now, most people, overlook that. It comes from the bottomless pit. This is Abaddon. This is Apollyon. This is the destroyer. The book of Revelation is the same story described 3 different times in 3 different ways from 3 different aspects. So this same beast that is released from the bottomless pit is Apollyon. It is the destroyer. This deep state, which is comprised of, well, I don't want to get too far left field, but let's just say it goes deep. We're talking about the offspring of the fallen, the devil. You know what I mean? They live among us. They look like us, but their nature is completely different. Nonetheless, the Apollyon, the destroyer, the beast system comes from the bottomless pit. Our fight, our war is not against flesh and blood, but against darkness, against principalities of evil in high places. These are governmental principalities that work in evil, dark spirits. So Apollyon, Abaddon, mentioned earlier in the book of Revelation, is the same destroyer mentioned here in the book of Revelations, chapter 17, verse 8. "And the dwellers on the earth, whose name has not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel to see the beast." Chapter 13 said, those who are spiritually dead, the soulless demonic individuals or soulless empty vessels, that Christ said, "Let the dead bury the dead," they are they are easily coerced into becoming part of this gang stalking surveillance state, the community policing network. Why? Because they're marveling. Their names haven't been written in a book of life. They have no faith in Christ, so they put their fear in the beast and so forth. So I want to go further into this, but due to the fact that we're an hour and 20 minutes in and no one wants to, you know, watch an hour and 20-minute video, I'm going to shorten this and pick it up in another segment. But I want you guys to finish reading chapter 17. You know, and understand that this system's getting ready to fall. Babylon is going to fall. The beast is divided. There's going to be revolution in America. We're up on some trying times, so people get prepared. You know, this is the calm before the storm, as they've said over and over again. You know, don't get too comfortable in thinking that the everyday functions going to continue as they have.